In this video, I explain single audits in less than 5 minutes. What is a single audit? Well, it's just what it says. It's a single audit. So if a not-for-profit or a government receives 10 grants, there's only going to be one audit. So in this example, if there's 10 grants, the auditor's usually not going to audit all 10 grants. They're going to audit maybe 2 or 3 of the 10 grants. And they do so by determining whether or not those grants are major. And the major classifications based on whether or not there's risk related to those grants. So the higher risk programs are deemed major and thus audited. If the auditor in this example is looking at 10 grants and then they deem 3 of those major, the next thing they're going to do is go to the compliance supplement issued by the Office of Management and Budget, and they're going to look at the compliance areas that might be applicable to those grants. Then they're going to determine whether or not those areas such as allowability or eligibility or reporting, they're going to look at those compliance areas and they will test those that might be direct and material. What that really means is they're auditing the more important elements of compliance for the major programs. So how does the auditor audit these major programs? They're really going to look at 2 things here. One, they're going to look at compliance. For example, were the money spent for the purpose that they should have been spent? And also, we're going to look at internal controls. That second piece is the piece that's done wrong most often. But anyway, we're testing compliance and testing internal controls related to only those major programs. So out of those 10 programs, if 3 are major, we're testing compliance. Were the funds spent the right way, for example? Or did they do their procurement in relation to that grant in the right way, for example? Did they report appropriately? So those direct and material compliance areas related to each major grant are tested for compliance and internal controls. But what happens if there's non-compliance or the internal controls are not sufficient? Well, that's when the auditor has to report the non-compliance or the misspending, the misuse of the funds. The auditor would report that in the single audit report. That single audit report, once it's complete, is submitted to the Single Audit Clearinghouse. So this is public information. So the auditor, we audit, we create this single audit report, and then it's submitted to the Single Audit Clearinghouse so that anybody can see whether or not the nonprofit or the government has spent those funds in an appropriate manner. Also, whether or not the government had the right kind of internal controls for those monies. So in a nutshell, that's what a single audit is. One audit of all the federal programs. Auditor determines what are the major programs. Then he or she determines what are the relevant compliance areas such as allowability. Then they determine whether or not those areas are direct and material. In other words, whether or not they're important. Then those areas are tested for compliance and then also for internal controls. The single audit report is issued and then filed with the Single Audit Clearinghouse. So that's a single audit. Hope that helps. Take care and bye now.